All right.
Good afternoon and welcome to another version of CannaList Conversations. My name is Patrick Doherty and we are pleased to welcome Deion Mikesell,
Deion Mikesell, yep.
With Receptor Brands. Deion, how are you?
Good, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So Deion, tell the folks, where are you?
Currently based in Chicago, Illinois, trying to stay warm.
Yeah, it's Chicago. It's just, you're not going to be warm.
Yeah.
Illinois is a relatively new market for the cannabis space. Give us some insights. What's going on in cannabis these days in Illinois?
Man, where to start? There's so many things happening in the cannabis industry right now in the Illinois market. I think, with it being a fairly new market, there's a lot of attraction here, and a lot of people want to figure out what's going on. But unfortunately, there's just been things have been moving slow lately in terms of like the application licensing processes. Getting people access and the resources that they need to kind of push things forward with their business. It's kind of slow right now, but hopefully, in the upcoming months, things start to push forward as these licenses start to get approved at the state level. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we see. They make the announcement and everyone gets really excited. But then you have to work through the paperwork and work through the processes, which, can take a year or so, depending on, what you're trying to apply for. But
Right.
Are there dispensaries in Chicago at this point?
There is. The Illinois market is highly operated by the MSO. So multi-state operators, we got Cresco, MedMan, just a couple of them off the top of my head, Verilife. It's not as competitive as, their neighboring state like Colorado or Michigan. But we did hit past 1 billion cannabis sales, the last year in 2021. And I'm sure we're going to do even better in 2022 because, this market it's not slowing down. It's only speeding up. And I'm really excited to see kind of how dispensaries get rolling here as 420 starts to approach and see kind of what the Illinois market has to offer in terms of, facing their customers. So we'll see.
And just to clarify, we're talking about adult use and recreational use, right?
Yeah. So Illinois is recreational and medical.
Okay, cool. And you work for Receptor Brands. What do you do there?
So I am a social and community manager at Receptor Brands. It's a cannabis marketing agency, and we deal specifically with cannabis brands.
And what does the social and community manager do?
So basically, I kind of monitor and create content for all of our social platforms. We have LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram right now. So I kind of do that. But being for a startup, you kind of wear a lot of hats. So I get exposed to a lot of things. It can be on the client side, kind of on the research side, on the social side, obviously. So, I'm kind of getting exposed to a lot of things. But so far, so good. I'm really loving it. I was an intern for a year, and right when the COVID started, actually. So when the pandemic hit, kind of reached out to Kent Thomas, who I worked under, in the previous years, and asked if I could have an internship and wanted to kind of dip my toes in the cannabis space. It's always been an interest of mine, and I've always been a kind of a connoisseur in the cannabis space privately behind closed doors, and so. When that opportunity presented itself, I kind of took it in with full arms, and it's been going on 2 years now, and I've been kind of full time for the last 6 months. So it's been great so far.
And as a new marketing agency, what kind of services does Receptor offer?
Mm-hmm. It seems like we offer anything from A to Z. I think we do a lot of digital. From a marketing and advertising standpoint, we build anything from your brand experience, brand logo, product development, things of that nature. So, anything that kind of a brand needs from the product to getting it to the retailers, that's kind of what we handle. But from my personal role, I'm more on the social side. So, I kind of deal with the social things.
And are you on the social side? Are you curating content?
Yeah, I curate content. I try to, right now we're trying to incorporate kind of this communication strategy because we want to be um, more engaged with our community. I think, being a part of the cannabis industry, a big part of it is engaging and being in tune with what's happening locally with your community. And I think right now we're trying to, with all the slowdowns in Chicago and things like that, we kind of want to be more engaged in our community and see what's happening out there and start to get in front of these people who are dealing with, these lack of licensing coming out, what their traumas is and what they're kind of dealing with, to kind of get a sense of what's happening in the Illinois market, and maybe potentially see how we could help. So.
And do you find that a lot of the folks that are trying to enter the space just generally don't understand sort of the process and sort of the red tape required to go through that?
I mean, I guess that's kind of a complicated question depending on where you're operating at. I think it depends on it varies state from state, right? So each state doesn't.
Yeah, I'm asking on Chicago and Illinois.
Oh, Chicago and Illinois.
Yeah.
With it's a complicated question, and I think it's from an MSO standpoint. I think a lot of these people they have the right tools, they have the right resources to kind of engage with their consumer base and making sure that their products are accustomed to kind of who's going in through their dispensary. But I think it's a learning process for everyone that's in the cannabis space, from the operator side to the marketer side to the on-ground retail side. I think everyone is kind of learning as they go, and there's no right way to do the cannabis thing or to enter the cannabis thing. I think you just need to be open and aware that everyone's learning day by day, and the only thing you can do is really put your right foot forward. Reaching out to people, researching, and doing what you need to do to make sure that you can kind of push things forward when you have the right opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we tell folks is, if you're going to be in the cannabis space, it's a long-term game. You know what I mean? This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight, but it's very lucrative if you have the resources and the ability to stay in and then grow your business.
Right, absolutely. And I think, when people also need to realize that if they do have these resources, that there's people in the cannabis space that's probably right in their local community that don't have these resources. So I think, as we move forward and as this cannabis space starts to normalize and mold, we need to figure out and brainstorm how to engage with each other within the cannabis space and create more opportunities within ourselves to make the industry grow. I think that's really important too.
And in Illinois, are you guys seeing social equity programs or restorative justice programs? Are those available?
So the social equity program right now in Illinois, I mean, as of everything, things are moving slow. I know that there was, social equity applicant licenses that were supposed to be approved, and those got delayed. So, there's a conversation happening, and I know there's things that are being put into place to kind of create this opportunity for these social equity members. But, with anything, especially in Illinois, it's just kind of going slow. So hopefully within the upcoming months and this year of 2022, we really see social equity kind of enlighten in the Illinois space, but also in the cannabis space at large.
And as while you're curating content, what trends are you seeing?
There's a lot of trends going on right now. I think, sadly, social equity, I feel like social equity is a trend that that doesn't seem as good on surface. I think social equity and when people on management teams and corporate leaders kind of in the cannabis space plan and strategize how to incorporate social equity programs and provide minority leaders and minority players in this space opportunities in the cannabis space. They need to discuss, what's the right expectation for these people moving forward, but also kind of re-examine the lessons that of lack of representation in the past. And I think, workers of colors have experienced efforts made in towards diversity and equity, especially in Chicago. It's not always, it's not always what it seems on surface. And I think learning from these past examples of injustice is important, and it kind of represents this push to innovate and move forward, and it might create more equitable outcomes today for these members as this space starts to normalize. So I think to answer your question, it's understanding this concept of providing these opportunities for these people that don't have the right tools and resources as their other counterparts, because I think it's going to be critical in pushing towards this new corporate culture built on diversity, equity, and conclusion. So, yeah.
And you mentioned that Illinois surpassed $1 billion in sales. Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
And is that concentrated in Chicago? Is it pretty much statewide? Where are you seeing that activity?
And just in terms of sales,
Yeah.
I think well, to the earlier point, I think the Illinois market being new, there's a lot of attraction here, and it's a tourist location as well. So a lot of the sales were recreational, and we have a lot of people who are willing to pay the taxes here, and it's crazy the actual amount of tax put on cannabis, and people still paying that price. And so I think that's an estimate towards that this industry is not going anywhere, and it's only attracting new people. So as competition starts to integrate here in Illinois, I think the prices and tax hopefully goes down a little bit. But yeah, it's great to see that despite the lack of competition here, we're still hitting 1 billion in sales revenue, and most of that was from recreational. So it's good to see.
And is there a sense that the issue with the taxation is continuing to support the black market as folks go for a cheaper product?
I mean, it can lean towards both sides. I think people are always, with the vape crisis that happened in 2019, I think people are always going to be hesitant to lean towards the black market, but it's always been a safe option, quote unquote safe option, for a long period of time. But I think people want to feel safe about cannabis products. They want to know what they're getting their cannabis products from, and that's kind of not always clear when you're getting it from the black market. So despite the taxation, I think people just want to have sustainability and security when it comes to trying cannabis if they're not new to it. But also if you're normal to cannabis and it's not foreign to you, I think you still want that level of security and sustainability with the products you're intaking. So, despite the tax, I think it's just going to be something that you're going to have to deal with. And I guess when it comes down to sustainability and security, where you want to get your products from, that depends on the customer. But yeah, we'll see how things form and fold out moving forward.
One of the interesting things that we've been seeing in Chicago is a lot of the traditional agencies that were primarily focused, on Michigan and the industries up there, Kellogg, have shifted to the cannabis space, or have definitely created a position within the cannabis space. Is there a bit of a gold rush in the sort of the agency world in Chicago around cannabis?
I feel like it's a gold rush in cannabis, period.
Gold rush, yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone wants to be involved in the cannabis space because it's a trend right now. And I think for the longest time, people who were a fan of cannabis or consumed it, they had to do it behind closed doors or had to be private. And I think now that it's kind of become this expression of advocacy towards cannabis or marijuana is not considered this horrible thing that it influence your life in a bad way. It needs to have positive light shined on it. And I think
but you can't smoke it in public.
I mean, you can.
Or is it tolerated? Or I mean, because technically, I
don't think you can. But I think people are just starting to normalize the plant, and it's good to see, because for the longest time, I think cannabis represents something larger than within itself of just consumption. It brings people together, it shines light, it helps people in many different ways. And I think allowing this plant to normalize and kind of mold into something that can be shined, put more light onto, it's going to benefit people and personally, but also it's gonna create more opportunities for the cannabis space and people moving forward. So I'm excited to be here and be a part of the space and see how it's all going to unfold.
So we've been talking about recreational use. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in the CBD markets.
And CBD is such a huge space right now. I feel like, my personal experience with CBD. I was sponsored as a professional athlete in France. I was sponsored um, by the CBD company named Pure Solar, based in the UK, and I took it for recovery purposes. To kind of decompress from a long hard day at work, from on the field or in the gym, and it's something that I've leaned towards. Just to kind of uh,
Just
step.
by way of background, tell our folks what sport you played.
I played rugby.
Okay.
So I was a professional rugby player for 4 years. Had a short career.
Break
It wasn't.
anything?
No, I wasn't due. It wasn't due to injuries
Okay.
or just injury ending career. It was just I kind of wanted to, like I said, I was always an advocate for cannabis, and I saw that there was a lot of opportunities for me to kind of tell my story and to resonate with other people. And I could do that through my story through cannabis, and relating to CBD. I always looked at CBD as kind of this health alternative for me. As I dealt with injuries or decompression, as I said, being a professional athlete. And, I also witnessed that a lot of, for these symptoms and for to decompress and deal with injuries, I saw a lot of opioids get handed out to my teammates. And I also have family trauma that I've dealt with personally, just seeing people addicted to these sort of pills. And there's, they were given this as an alternative to deal with whatever they're dealing with. And I think for me, CBD was an alternative for those remedies, dealing with medical pains or decompression. And so I kind of wanted to, that's the kind of short story of it, but I kind of wanted to amplify that story and kind of be full on with cannabis and start to really understand how the industry works, and be more knowledgeable behind it, because I always was an advocate for it, and I always wanted to be involved in the industry. I just didn't know how to do it. So I think, not getting off subject here, but being coming from a professional athlete background, and using CBD products all throughout my professional career, I think there's a education piece and a story enlightenment that I can provide to the industry, and hopefully one day a story gets told in the right manner. But yeah, it's just a little bit of how I kind of got into the cannabis space, and kind of my passion and my interest in the cannabis sector was always on top of priority for mine.
And are you guys seeing products like Delta-8 and stuff like that coming into the market?
Yeah, Delta-8's coming heavy into the market right now. But the problem with Delta-8 is that it's not highly regulated, and I think there's a lot of gray area when companies bring on Delta-8 products, because it's not regulated, and when products and certain cannabinoids are not regulated, it can become a tricky area for cannabis operators. So yeah, we are seeing a lot of Delta-8 products kind of come into the market and emerge into the market, but we'll see kind of how it unfolds as regulations come to place.
Yeah, I mean, our sense is, the folks that are in the Delta-8 space are looking for the quick buck. They're not in it for the long term, but they've figured out a way to, a workaround way around the law, which allows them to sell product today. But
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like you said, it's not regulated. They're selling it in convenience stores. The access is ridiculous. It's not controlled. So,
Right.
But we're seeing it pretty much across the board. And I was just curious as to whether you guys were seeing it locally as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about the community. What's the community like around cannabis and CBD? Yeah, and the ones that you're hoping to build with Receptor.
I mean, in the cannabis community, I mean, you got to realize that cannabis is a part of a much bigger legacy. I mean, it's only starting to become normalized now, but people have always been a part of cannabis for years, and so there's a long history that's kind of untold with cannabis. And I think there's a lot of examples of people's lives being damaged by cannabis, with whether it be through criminal possessions or what have you. So there's still I feel like the cannabis culture is good, but I just feel like there's still a lack of expression with the untold stories of the cannabis culture. And I think for the industry to really progress and normalize in this sustainable way moving forward, people need to go back and dig into some history of kind of how cannabis advocacy created, and kind of how it's kind of unfolded throughout the history and what it's become today. I think that's really important in terms of the element of cannabis culture. But in Illinois, the cannabis culture is great. We have many outside events that happen. Obviously, it's kind of complicated right now with COVID and everything. A lot of cannabis events got canceled, unfortunately. But it's great to be in front, in front of the cannabis community here in Illinois, and be a part of and share the presence of people who kind of have the same vision as you and believe in the plant. Have like ideas like you, and it's just always be good in that environment and to be around people who kind of are advocating towards the same things that you are. So it's good.
And if I'm not mistaken, Illinois has a restorative justice program where they're overturning prior convictions. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's so part of I'm part of a organization called the we might need to edit this part, but so can you actually ask that question again? Sorry.
Yeah, so don't go down that path. We'll go down a different path. My understanding, and if you know, if you don't, that's fine. But my understanding is that Illinois has a law that is, wiping clean previous convictions around the cannabis. So for folks who just had possession convictions, things like that. So
yeah, I think you're referring to the MORE Act. So the MORE Act allows, or it includes
because the MORE Act is federal. So the convictions are at a state level. So anyway, let's move on from there. That's fine.
Sorry.
No, that's cool, man. That's why we're here. We're just having a conversation.
Right.
So where you guys are a startup, how long have you been in business? Tell us about Receptor a little bit more.
So it's kind of funny because I always hear how kind of the story of Receptor started. So Receptor's kind of been in play for 2 years. I think it's kind of it originally started with kind of 3 independent contractors that kind of had this idea and believed in the cannabis, that there was a lack of kind of expressing the product and brand experience in cannabis. And I think it kind of started with these 3 independent contractors who kind of believed that there was a lack of branding in cannabis. And so they kind of started this idea to form or help assist in marketing and advertising with cannabis brands 3 years ago. And fast forward to now, we're a small team, small startup team that has done great things in the past year, and we're only going to do great things moving forward. And I'm proud of everything we accomplished. So shout out Receptor Brands.
And what are you guys focused on for 2022?
Really build sustainable, long-term relationship with our clients, and really highlight the importance of marketing and advertising in cannabis, and how that kind of pulls through the product experience and the brand experience for their customers. So just making sure that we're accessible to our clients, and we're ultimately pushing the cannabis industry moving forward and normalizing the space. So that'll probably be our biggest focus.
Well, Deion, we are definitely looking forward to seeing big things come out of Chicago. It's a new market. It's a hot market. People are definitely talking about Chicago, Illinois, New York. Those are definitely the markets to watch. So we appreciate your time today, and we appreciate your insights.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
We'd love to, circle back in 6 months to a year, and hopefully you'll have some great updates for us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.